Warren Shaw. We about to get into some game face some things.
So you saying that to say what?
I'm saying it's only because you're hearing it.
No, you saying something. If you saying it, I'm hearing it because you saying it. What are you saying? Let it be said.
Kyle Lee, Warren Shaw of the Baseline NBA Podcast. Another segment of Speak On It, my dude. The word is out. There's another $200 million man in the NBA, and his name is Russell Westbrook. The Oklahoma City Thunder have offered, and Russell Westbrook has kindly signed the 5-year, $205 million contract extension. He is now a Thunder for the next 5 years. And you know what's hilarious to me, Shaw, is people aren't really talking about the fact that this is the highest contract in NBA history yet again. You know what I'm saying? And maybe in some weird, I got you move by the Oklahoma City Thunder, that they made sure that it was tantamount that they one-upped the Steph Curry contract. The weirdest thing to me is that everybody was looking at this as saying, this contract was sitting on the table, and it just so happens that Russell Westbrook signed it on KD's birthday. And I'm like, is that what we're really talking about? I think people kind of have lost sight about the importance of this move and Sam Presti and how this affects his, position with the Oklahoma City Thunder in getting this deal done and getting Westbrook to finally sign on the dotted line.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. OKC has stability. They don't have to go into the season with these lingering questions. Well, what's our franchise player going to do? They're not going to have a Kevin Durant situation when it comes to Russ. They know he's there, he's locked in, and he's going to continue to be there to help recruit guys and hopefully now start working on Paul George and Carmelo and seeing if this team, although they haven't even played a game yet, seeing this is a team that can and should and wants to stay together, for the foreseeable future. But Russ is definitely the catalyst, the main cog in this wheel, and kudos to Sam Presti. I think already low key, at least on paper, he'd have to be our preseason executive of the year, man, because these are great moves that he's been able to accomplish. And the fact that getting Russ to sign on the dotted line just puts OKC in a great position for the future.
I'm going to open up. I'm going to throw 2 points out there. One, had we not had our conversation during our previews about what Sam Presti was able to do with the players that he received in the trade and getting Paul George, flipping the assets to getting, putting himself in a situation where he can get a Carmelo Anthony, I honestly would have said to you again, I believe that Sam Presti is clearly reaching for the stars, that there has to be something bigger in this grand scheme of things that is letting me know that these are actually sound moves. And finally, the fact that Russell Westbrook has signed this contract extension, it validates all of that, to your point, Shaw. No matter what happens at the end of this, there is no way that the Oklahoma City Thunder is going to let go of Sam Presti, because what has plagued this Oklahoma City Thunder franchise is that they have now allowed, in a span of 5 years, 2 marquee players walk away from that market, from that fan base, to go to other teams and continue their endeavors, whether it's personal, whether it's championship aspirations, whatever. And somehow Sam Presti got it right the third time. Whether it's a level of loyalty that he's playing upon with Russell Westbrook, whether it was this commitment in bringing Paul George or Carmelo Anthony to the fold, the fact that he was able to do it and the timing, and I can't stress this enough, Shaw, the timing of Sam Presti's moves, I think is what is equated to the commitment that Russell Westbrook wanted to sign and stay with the Oklahoma City Thunder, thus enabling Sam Presti again to be the GM for this team moving forward, at least for the next 5 years. Like, he has to own it, and at some point it has to translate to them getting to an NBA Finals again and maybe even winning a championship. But people will not be able to argue that all of this has culminated to what really had mattered most now that has been revealed, which is getting Russell Westbrook to stay when he couldn't get James Harden or he couldn't get Kevin Durant to be able to stay for that franchise.
Well, I'm glad that you've come around.
I said all of that really to say this.
Yeah, I mean, you've been Not killing Presti,
but I've
but
been
you've
harsh.
been real skeptical.
Skeptical,
Real
and I've been
skeptical.
harsh. Yeah, I will own up to it, Shaw. Listen, I don't even care if whether or not we're looking at this as self-preservation, because you really do have to look at it in that particular sense. I think that if Russell Westbrook lets that contract linger on up to the preseason, going into this upcoming season, and even if we say that he is going to sign on, we would have some point started speculating about the moves Sam Presti has made and whether they are good enough to equate to superstar players buying into the OKC mantra about winning a championship, but ultimately is what these guys need to and want to do.
Yeah. Well, it's great that he's built the rapport with Russ, and I think those shows of haste, as you called them earlier in the summer, especially in the case of Paul George, have now, I think, solidified the trust and relationship Presti had with Westbrook and the commitment to wanting to surround Westbrook with requisite talent that's capable of competing in the NBA, not just being a playoff team, but truly competing and challenging, hopefully, for an NBA championship at some point. So again, like you said, I think you said it perfectly too. Well, whether it was self-preservation or not, it was the right calculated moves that he had to make, and it definitely bought him some goodwill and good faith with Westbrook. And now their relationship is solidified. And again, sure, it could all go south, 3 years from now or whatever the case would be, and Westbrook could be in a Carmelo-like situation. But at least for right now, it's all good for OKC. And now they have a great chance to build around this team with Westbrook as the catalyst.
Another thing that I think is really interesting, Shaw, and it's not going to get talked about, but I feel like there's a slight underlayer here, right? Like, we understand as a GM what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to do here, especially with the roster that Sam Presti has managed to put together in this past offseason. But amidst all of the hype and the hoopla about what was going to happen to Paul George, amidst all the hype and the hoopla about Carmelo Anthony, these are both players that were expected to go to other destinations and not OKC. Isn't it kind of funny how Sam Presti, in a way, has somewhat flipped the script, that the onus now goes back to players like Paul George and Carmelo Anthony? Like, let's just say, for happen's sake, Shaw, this is a team that becomes the second best team in the Western Conference. And let's say they even get as close as to the Western Conference Finals, and they're just not good enough to beat the Golden State Warriors. No matter what is being said, you're not going to fault Sam Presti and what he was able to do for this team and this franchise and that fan base. You're going to start wondering about the players and what their overall aspirations are. Like, if you're Carmelo Anthony, are you really just saying, I want to go join LeBron James wherever he might wind up doing or wherever he might wind up ending, knowing that you just now have gotten to your first conference finals? If you're Paul George and you had a bite at an apple with this combination of talent around you, is it really a foregone conclusion that you should even be thinking about trying to go to the Los Angeles Lakers because you're really feeling yourself that well that you're going to be able to take that team, given the Warriors are still in that division, and try and win a championship through them, that you could probably find yourself doing maybe for the next 2-3 seasons with the Oklahoma City Thunder? Really sly by Sam Presti, man, because I guarantee you that's exactly where the conversation is going to lead when we get to the end of the season and we evaluate what the Oklahoma City Thunder have done through the course of the 2017-18 season.
Yeah, well, Paul George is obviously, he just has to opt out so that he can try to maximize the most amount of money with the new salary cap that's going to be in place. So, but whether he stays or not, I think, with Westbrook's commitment, that does put him in a very unique situation. Can't remember whether or not, with this trade, if the bird rights came along with Paul George, so if he makes all NBA or something like that too, then maybe OKC has a little bit of a leg up with that. We have to try to check the details on that. But, Melo, 2 years left, this year and next, and the player option for next. It really is going to depend on how the season plays itself out. But again, landing and being able to keep Russ, I think, signifies even something to those two guys now as well too, to say if they do have a good season, get over the 50+ win mark, really challenge in the Eastern Conference, make it to at least the second, maybe even third round of the Western Conference playoffs. Who knows if things really get lucky, then that team would really have to think about sticking together. Well, Presti has definitely done everything he's needed to do to not only maintain his job, but to maintain some goodwill within the city and the league as well too. And I think that also will help him attract maybe some other guys, who may want to come alongside them and play along. I mean, I look at the situation like Minnesota, where Thibodeau made a great trade to get Jimmy Butler, and they get Jeff Teague over there now. So all of a sudden Jamal Crawford all of a sudden, hey, I want to come there now and come off the bench. So does this now happen to be the case with OKC? Do they get somebody to kind of shake loose last minute now? Like, you know what, I wouldn't mind coming over there. As the season progresses, either be a trade or if they're able to keep this trio together even next summer.
One thing I do want to emphasize, Shaw, is, and we didn't talk too much about it, but you alluded to it, is what does this do for Russell Westbrook? I mean, do we think that maybe in some way this is now really putting a lot on his shoulders? I think it's relieved a lot of people, because remember, the previous season, right? He had, Michael Jordan used him as a platform to discuss, how players need to be loyal, to their franchises, show a level of loyalty to their franchises, and how he used, Russell Westbrook's, mantra and mindset to help kind of carry that platform. They had that little bully pulpit, so to speak. Now we're talking about an MVP player who had an historic season, 36.1 points, 10.7 rebounds, 10.4 assists, right? But it's very clear that by doing this, the spotlight now is illuminating on, we're really, leaning on the MVP, that if we have to branch out, and it's not about the talent that we're drafting, it's about the people that we can attract from a free agency perspective if this doesn't play out to where we're winning a championship. How much of that onus now really rests on Russell Westbrook, and do you see it succeeding for this team?
I think a lot of where this franchise goes is obviously it's going to be determined by Westbrook, but then how he also, now that he's locked up, has a significant portion of the salary cap with his funds and salary. How he goes out to recruit. I think a caveat, or maybe like an offshoot to your question, would be, if it doesn't work out with Melo and Paul George, does he continue to be there for the long haul? Does he sour in any way, shape, or form? Because since he's got the money, he's got the contract now. So would he then, shift gears? And I don't think that's the case at all. But how much of a recruiter does he become in trying to say, hey, guys, come play with me? I don't need to average 30 a game. I can average 20 whatever and make sure that you guys get your touches as well too. We want to see that happen this upcoming season. But as you alluded to, if it doesn't happen, if it does somehow, it doesn't work itself out, and people feel like, hey, Paul George and Melo feel like, hey, we're not getting enough touches here as a result, because Westbrook is still trying to be Westbrook from last season, then it will be off-putting, I think, to other people who eventually want to come to this franchise. And that's something that would be a true detriment to what OKC is trying to build.
Well, it's so funny to me now, Shaw, because you remember we had our man, I'm losing my train of thought, Air West.
Yeah, Keon Kendrick.
Yeah, we had Keon Kendrick on, right? And he was talking about how, they have a platform that allows even marquee players to come out and play, and they do these runs. And, I was just flipping through, how we do our thing on IG. We've seen Russell Westbrook interacting and playing with a lot of the top players in the NBA, on the court, making runs. And we'd be naive to not think that in itself shows a level of inclusiveness that we're starting to see from Russell Westbrook. And I don't know if it's more intended. I mean, he's clearly a competitor, wants to ball with the best, and he obviously has some really good friends that he loves to play with. But I just wonder if whether or not now we're starting to see the more diplomatic version of Russell Westbrook, because I know players like them like to do their own thing. There's a little Kobe in Russell. You know what I mean? But I really do believe that part of what's going to have to take place moving forward for signing this kind of contract is he's going to have to be out there from a basketball perspective, buddying up with guys that you never thought that you would see him paired up with to be playing basketball with. It's kind of like how we saw with LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and a host of these other guys, like Carmelo Anthony. We often thought that those guys were so competitive with each other that they would never want to be on the same court, even in the off season. But now it's a part of the norm. You know what I'm saying? It's the new normal in the NBA. I just wonder if part of that is also intended and profiled so that it becomes a benefit and asset to a guy like Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, no, I think those are great points, and this OKC team has all the opportunity to be great under the leadership of Westbrook and the great general management of Sam Presti, at least to this point, and doing the right things and learning from mistakes, because, I don't think he does some of these moves if some other things don't happen to him on the negative side, when it comes to, losing players or trading players away, even in the case of James Harden. History is an ultimate teacher, and he's learned and he's understanding, what? We don't want to see mistakes past happen again. So let's put our best foot forward. And I think Westbrook, too, is going to do that as well, as he tries to learn how to continue to win and do so with requisite talent around him and hopefully get back to an NBA championship.
Russell Westbrook locked down until age 33, which many can argue would even just be around the prime of his career. What a move, signing himself to a $205 million 5-year extension. He is the cornerstone for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And definitely congratulations to him, and congratulations to the Oklahoma City Thunder and your fan base. Your MVP stays put in OKC. Be sure to catch my man Shaw at Shaw Sports NBA, or get at me at GameFace Lee. We always encourage you to get at our show, The Baseline NBA Podcast, our Twitter handle at NBA Baseline.